So, what is living in a studio apartment like after a very long time living in a van? Um, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's nice. It has all of the frustrations of sort of apartment living. I'm on an upper floor, so you need to be really conscious about like how you step. You can be need to be conscious of your noise level at a certain time. Some people might say the noise level thing also applies in a van, but I actually found I thought about it less in the van. Like I just kind of relaxed into myself, and I don't mean that I want to throw loud parties or make a lot of noise or like be very annoying to my neighbors. I'm just saying that there's a consciousness you have to have when you realize on the other side of your wall could be somebody else's home and you're trying not to be invasive into their space. Um, and you don't know what part of their home is like facing your home. I mean, so your living room wall where you want to like, kick back and watch something could be right next to their bedroom wall. And that's one of the things I kind of don't like about apartment living. That's why I don't see myself ever having an apartment voluntarily that I pay for again in my life. I literally have no interest in an apartment ever. A detached house, if ever I've reached that state of financialness, a piece of land where I could like park a large RV and get some hookups installed, maybe like those kind of things I see in my future, but I don't really see myself ever wanting an apartment. Apartments I kind of frustrating and intimidating in the way that you have to kind of have this sense up in them. There are people who love apartments and have glorious, wonderful lives in apartments, but I've not been one of them. And also, I never really want roommates again, so I'm glad I don't have roommates in this situation. The last time I got housing from a theater job situation, I did have two roommates, and I was basically housed with two people very randomly, and that was an interesting situation. It wasn't horrible. Like we didn't completely not get along, but there were definitely some rhythms of life that were not the same amongst all three of us. Sharing kitchens I find can be difficult. Um, I have a whole fridge to myself, like a whole full size fridge, and that's kind of blowing my mind. I have nothing in the freezer because I'm just not used to buying. There's I said ice. I did two ice trays and I haven't used any ice in it, which is kind of funny. I have two ice trays in the freezer and I literally haven't used the ice, but I was like, oh my gosh, I can have ice, and so I made two ice trays, but I haven't used the freezer. I'm actively trying to avoid things like ice cream, which is the only thing I can think of that would be in a freezer because I'm trying to get to a healthier self. And there's just nothing at this exact second that I can see me putting in the freezer. But I have bought larger boxed items than I would in the van because even though I have a fridge in the van now, it's basically the size of like a small ice chest or cooler or whatever word you want to use. So it's a completely different situation. So it's interesting. It's interesting having had these days just to like settle in and be in a apartment. It's a little insane for me, and I just I'm just still adjusting. Um, I've gotten some gifts over PayPal that I will write some proper letters to. I'm a little bit blown away. I For some reason the emails in my from my PayPal get really thrown off, so I don't get them right away. So for anyone who sent me something over PayPal towards the engine repair, know that I'm not ignoring you. I literally just saw it this morning because I checked PayPal randomly and I was like, oh my goodness. So thank you so much. I will promptly go and get my car work done, and I thank you so much for allowing me to get that done a lot sooner than I thought I would be able to. So those two things are out the way. One of the replies that I've been getting is stay in Oregon, get a part-time job at OSF, stay there forever. I have literally no control how long OSF employs me. I have a 2-month contract. If I do well, they may invite me back next season, but staying here, quote unquote, forever is not an option. It never was an option. There is no situation in which I stay in Oregon past my 2-month mark. I will have to get the van repaired and drive it back to California. It's a really nice contract. I'm looking forward to doing that one as well. So there is no situation where I don't go back to California. I will be going back. Now, if I will return to Oregon in the future, Ashland. Let's go with Ashland because people are correcting my horrible pronunciation on a daily basis, and I'll probably mispronounce it till the day I leave. So let's go with Ashland, even though I'm trying to make the difference between states. If I return to Ashland and Oregon Shakespeare Festival in the future, hopefully, yes, I would love to, like, in next season and future seasons, to be employed on longer contracts, but that's all based on how well I do on this contract. Like, this festival is already contracted, and therefore, you know, my next opportunity would be at the next festival. So that just doesn't change. That's the way it is, and it's kind of set in stone, guys. Sorry. So what else is there to talk about? So let's, in general, talk about the reasons. As the title of the video states, the reason I got into van life is to get into this exact position. Not specifically Oregon Shakespeare Festival, but I pronounce it right, guys. I do. Not specifically Oregon Shakespeare Festival, but to have the freedom to say yes to whatever. And if I get a permanent job, or any sort of permanent job, or any sort of part-time job that demands a regular schedule, my ability to say yes and no to the jobs I want to take are gone, or more difficult. Maybe it's not gone, and maybe it's more difficult. There was a point where I was working at a sandwich shop. I worked there for many years, and when I got a show, as soon as I got the schedule, I would request my days off, and I would coordinate my days off, and even some paid days off where they were paying me while I was working. I would use my paid vacation days, because I actually had those in this situation. I earned them per year, so that I was getting paid enough to do theaters that didn't pay that much. So instead of taking vacations, instead of those paid days off being actual days off, they were ways for me to supplement the fact that I was doing a theatrical production. And so that job was challenging because they wanted me to give them a certain amount of hours per week, a certain amount of days a week per week, and trying to, like, work a inconsistent theatrical contract to contract schedule around those is really, really difficult. Many people do it because nobody gets started in this industry getting paid enough to just be in this. That's not true. A few rare people, because, like, one of the stage managers I'm working with, she was lucky enough to get an internship at OSF straight out of college, and it became her next few years. So she's never known what it's like to not work in a union house, and that was luck. I graduated and started working for smaller theaters, which is far more common, for basically pennies to nothing, and now I'm at the point where I am actively trying to flip it to companies that can actually pay a wage that is reasonable for the amount of work being done. And I love saying that most of this year I have done that. And I'm really proud of that. So van life has been about being able to say yes to those opportunities without having to work around a commitment that requires a certain amount of hours or days of the week. Even my new, house management job back in San Francisco, I literally just told them, I'm going to be gone for 2 months. You can feel free to put me back on the house management schedule when I get back. And they work with people who have those kinds of schedules. So it was the perfect type of situation to add to my life, so that I was doing less Uber Eats, so that I was doing less DoorDash, so that I was doing less things that require me to drive around and run down my car. In my ideal situation, I'm using my van to live in and to get me to a job and to leave a job, not to do a job. And Amazon Flex, I've loved doing it. It's really easy most of the time. I'm not going to say there's not challenging days or days that go on longer than I expected. There's also been really easy days where I showed up, I sat in the parking lot, and I got paid for like just sitting there. That happened at least twice. Doesn't happen a lot. Out of all the times I've done Amazon Flex, it's only happened twice that I showed up on site and I was never scheduled for any deliveries and I was still paid. Things like Winolo have been amazing because it's like when I need work, I just open the app, I look for a job, I get a little bit of money, and then I move on with my life. I'm not committed to anything through those apps. So as much as the gig economy can be a trap, because some people are like, oh, I love this, I only get to work when I want to, but then they're missing all those benefits of a full-time job, not because they couldn't take a full-time job, but because they kind of like the freedom, but they also want the benefits of a full-time job. I always did Winolo and Uber Eats and DoorDash and all those things, knowing they didn't have the benefits of a full-time job, and they in fact had some drawbacks, because you're basically legally, when it comes tax time, going to be treated like an independent business. That means you're going to have to pay self-employment tax. So that money, like you're bragging about how much money you make over Uber or DoorDash or whatever, you're bragging about it, and then it's going to come and bite you in the butt via tax time if you haven't tracked your expenses properly, and just in general. I mean, just it comes with its own burden, and you need to accept that burden or get a normal job. And I think some people don't, and that's where they can fall into a trap. Like, everything is going to have its positive and negatives. You just have to decide if the positives are more worth it to you than the negatives. And for some people, they completely know that, and they're like, I want to work for myself on my own hours. I want to be able to like not work and go to my kids' school, go to my kids' events. And that's just some of the reasons they choose these like sort of gig economy things. Now, I always think if you're doing gig economy jobs, you should use it to supplement your time so that you can actually dedicate your time to something you do want to do. Because nobody wants to still be driving Uber at 70. And if all you've done is all these disconnected jobs that were going nowhere, you're going to have a really tough time having sort of a nest egg that means anything. Right now, I know I am personally in a very unsecure position at this point in my life. I have no securities. I have no cushy retirement. I have none of the things that people would love to have by 40, but 40 came and I was still working for my dream, and I don't see myself getting off this path. As this point, it's where I want to go. And I don't see any point in not going where I want to go, and I understand what's at risk. If I got a debilitating illness tomorrow, I don't have any sort of health insurance or any sort of coverage to help me with that. But I can be worried about a situation that doesn't exist or plow forward in the thing I want to do, knowing the risks. But Vanlife has been about getting me here in the position to say yes to things that I want to do as a career. And it comes with a lot of hard work, and it comes with a lot of sacrifice, and it comes with a lot of jumping off a ledge and not knowing if you're going to land. And it can kill you. Or it can be the most thrilling thing you've ever done, and you survive it, and you just don't know. But I don't see a point in living a life towards a thing that's making you miserable. And it's different if you are I'm doing this so, my kids can have what they need to have. Well, in that case, it's what's making you happy may not be the job, but the fact that your kids have everything that they needed to have is making you happy. And that's great, because it's working towards something that means something to you. But for me, getting a 9-to-5 is just working towards acceptance by regular society. And I'm not looking for that acceptance, and that acceptance isn't going to make me happy. In my day-to-day, it's not going to make me happy about what I'm getting up and spending most of my life doing. I am going to work insane hours for the next 2 months. I'm going to have a 1 day off a week. Now, some days are going to be shorter than others. Some days are going to be longer than others. When tech comes, I'm just going to want to die. But I get 1 day off a week moving forward. And that's okay. because this is where I wanted to get as far as level of career, as far as payment, as far as perks. I mean, I even get a slight travel reimbursement for driving up here. So my life has been about getting to situations like this. I don't want to live in one city. I am right now sort of in the San Francisco Bay Area. Again, San Francisco Bay Area, which is, for me, San Francisco, Berkeley, Oakland, occasionally going down to San Jose and those areas, because I've established a hold there where I can get a lot of jobs. But my goal is to be in different places as often as possible doing work. Like, I'm interested in tours. I'm interested in traveling. I'm interested in being in different cities that aren't the San Francisco Bay Area. So when I say van life has been about getting me here, I don't mean that it's about getting me free housing where I have a stand-up kitchen, which has been amazing. Like, if there's one thing I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. I love cooking for myself or preparing food in the stand-up kitchen. You know, I love that there's easy access to like running water. Those things are great. They're amazing. But I'm not like, oh my God, I've missed this so much. I can't possibly go back to living in a van. No, at the end of April, I'm going to go back to living in my van. Hopefully one day I can get a bigger van so I can have a few more of the benefits that were enjoyable in the apartment experience. But like, I am just grateful that I lived in my van so that I could be exactly here right now. And that's what van life has been about for me. And I'm just so grateful for where I am at this exact moment in my life. And 2 months from now, when I'm living in an apartment, 2 months from now, when I'm living in my van, in a parking lot somewhere, or in the corner of a street, I'll still be grateful. Because van life has been about the opportunities it opens. That's all I got for you today. Peace until the next time I can check in. I'd like to give special thanks to Sienna, Amber, Jane, Andrea, and Deborah for contributions on PayPal that were specifically for my radiator repair. It means so much to me.